LLCs are a good thing that they're very, very widely used. They're one of like the newer business entities. They're fantastic tools for people to use.
I'm Vicki Grodner, and I'm the college real estate coach. We wanted to discuss a really important topic, and it's especially important with the last couple deals I've done because we have had parents that at the 11th hour decided they wanted to buy property using an LLC. And so we thought that we would talk to an expert in this area, and that would be Miss Rachel Evans, who is an attorney we work with quite often at Capital Park Title, and she's also an associate attorney at Allman Attorneys. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, I'm just curious because I've never had the chance to talk to you personally, Rachel. So are you from Tuscaloosa? Did you attend school at the University of Alabama? All the things.
Sure. So, yeah, a little background about me. So I'm actually from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And I went to UAB for undergrad, so University of
Okay.
Alabama at Birmingham.
Uh-huh.
And people always ask me, well, why? And the answer is I played beach volleyball at UAB actually. And the second
Very
question is,
cool.
they have beach volleyball, and yes, they do. So super cool experience, and fell in love with Birmingham and Alabama in general. And then ended up, I knew I wanted to go to law school. So I ended up applying to several places and went to Alabama and was so glad. Alabama Law School. I have nothing but good things to say about it. And then met my husband in undergrad. His family is from Alabama. And so we ended up
Okay.
staying in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
I've
That's
been
great. Yeah.
practicing for about 2 years now. And I do, so of course, works alongside Capital Park Title. I like to say that I work, title adjacent,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
and not, like, in it all the time. But
Yes.
my practice is, so we do some business stuff. I do some transactional real estate. I do estate planning and probate, and all of those areas kind of work together and overlap quite a bit. So it's a really good area of practice. I love it, and learned a whole lot.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's really
Hmm.
great. So,
Yeah.
fun fact, I used to work in law firms as well. I was a chief
Oh,
marketing officer for law
awesome.
firms before I got into real estate. So,
Hmm.
yes, so I know just enough about your world to be scary,
Awesome. Yeah, I
but
love
yes.
that.
That's
That's
why
what I
we
say
need
about
people like
title.
you. There you go. So we know that there's a number of ways that parents buy real estate and investors for that matter. Obviously, cash and finance and that sort of thing. But often, as we just alluded to, we'll have people start buying as individuals and then they'll pivot and
Mhm.
decide at some point during the transaction, maybe I should set up an LLC. So, talk to me about the reasons. Why is it a good idea to buy real estate using an LLC?
Sure. So it's going to depend on, who is purchasing and in what capacity. So of course, you have investors who are looking to buy rental properties, and then
Mm-hmm.
in Tuscaloosa, a lot of the time you have parents who are, purchasing a property for their child to live in. But LLCs, the main reason to set up an LLC is it's in the title. It's a limited liability company. And what that means is you are setting up a distinct entity separate from yourself to own this property. Okay. And the limited liability portion comes in when, so if, God forbid, something happened, like for example, let's say you have four people living in a house and they're all tenants, okay, and they're all renting from you.
Okay.
Um, so if something happened to one of them, they fell and they wanted to sue you, if you own the house individually, so in your name, they can come after you and everything that you own. Versus if you have an LLC own the house, so the deed is in the LLC's name, they would have to sue the LLC, and they would only be able to get to the assets that the LLC owns. So
Ah,
most of the time, that is going to be, just the house, or it could be, depending on how many assets are in the LLC, multiple assets. But that's separate from what you own personally, so
okay.
it really it's limiting your liability.
That's
Um,
so smart.
so definitely a good idea for let's go back to our hypothetical where you have a parent that wants a child to have a place to live. So they say, instead of renting, we're going to, build some equity. I think that's a great idea to purchase a
Right.
property. But they have it's a four-bedroom home. So they say, okay, well, we're gonna have our child live here and then three other tenants. You don't know who those people are, and of course you don't want anything to happen, but it does protect you and limits any, suing that would happen, limits the assets. And so it's a good idea. And also, from an investor standpoint, it's just a good way to run the business. So all of
Mm-hmm.
of course, the LLC owns the house itself, but any rent income that comes into it, any expenses, that is all associated with the LLC. So it's separate from yourself. And,
Okay.
LLCs file taxes themselves. It is a separate entity.
Okay, that's really helpful. I
Hmm.
actually have some parents from St. Louis who have bought multiple properties, and I know every time that they buy a property, they set up an individual LLC. So I think you've just explained to me why they would do that, right?
Hmm.
Because then if you have an LLC that owns property A and a different one that owns property B,
Hmm.
then if something happens at property A, somebody's not going to be able to take property A and B if they were both in the LLC, same LLC. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And that's also
Okay.
why we tell clients I have lots of clients who have separate businesses. And so we generally say, you know, it, you want to keep the same type of things together. But in a
Mm-hmm.
specifically real estate world, it is you could have multiple properties in an LLC, but yes, if somebody sues that LLC, they have more assets to get to. So that is the reasoning behind setting up individual ones. Of course, it is, more paperwork and more hoops to jump through, but that's the trade-off. That's how you limit your liability. You do a little bit
Right.
more paperwork.
Right. So let's talk about that for a minute. How difficult is it to set up an LLC?
How difficult is it to set up? So it's not particularly difficult. I will say it is state specific though. Every
Yes.
state has their own requirements and you know, so the formation of course is different in each state and then also the requirements moving forward are different in each state. Specifically in Alabama, what you do is you set up an LLC and you have to register it with the Alabama Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to have an operating agreement, which is basically how the LLC is managed. Okay, and you
Okay.
know there's a difference between being a sole member LLC, so there's just one person, versus having multiple members in an LLC. You need usually
Mm-hmm.
more governance the more members that you have. Um, anyways, you set up the LLC. You make sure you have a an operating agreement of some sort. And then when I am setting it up for clients, I will get an EIN, which is a tax identifier. It's very similar to a social security number for a
Mm-hmm.
person. An EIN is for a business, like an LLC.
Right.
So you get the EIN, and then and that's really it. It's not particularly difficult. There's just, some paperwork that has to be filled out. And then, of course, you have to
Right.
do the Secretary of State stuff.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
And if I am that parent from out of state, is it better that I set up that LLC in Alabama if I'm buying here? Is it better to set it up in their home state? Does it matter?
Sure. So that's what it's really going to depend on is it's going to depend on the tax rates of the different states. It's going to
Oh,
depend on the
okay.
formation costs in the different states. It's Alabama is a relatively cheap state to set things
Mm-hmm.
up in.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know what the formation costs are in California or New York. I imagine
Sure.
they're higher though. Um,
Right.
so it's going to depend on the filing requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, though, you are going to have a registered agent and registered office in Alabama. And what that means is it's a requirement to have somebody who can receive process at a physical site in Alabama. Most of the time, when it's an LLC that holds real property, you use the address and the person setting up the LLC as those, as the registered agent and that registered address. But
Okay.
as far as what state to set it up in, it's just really
Mm-hmm.
going to depend on
Mm-hmm.
formation costs and that sort of thing.
And again, from recent experience, the Alabama process is pretty quick as well, right? So,
Yes. Yep.
and that
And
could be a reason to do it here as well.
certainly. And another good thing about Alabama is that there are no yearly requirements for reporting. So, for example, in
Oh, that's
Florida,
great.
yeah, so in Florida, I'm barred in Florida as well.
Okay.
And I've done some LLC work in Florida. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not particularly difficult, but they do have different requirements. And then every year you have to submit a form to them and pay a fee. So it just depends, frankly.
Sure, sure. Okay, so say I don't initially buy the property in an LLC, and so I buy it in my personal name,
Mhm.
and then say, I think I should really own this property in an LLC. How difficult is that? Are there any kind of roadblocks to doing that or anything that we need to know about?
So I would just, if you're thinking about doing an LLC, it is just always better to, before even, or in the very, very beginning of the process where you're, going under contract, go ahead and get the
Mm-hmm.
LLC formed because
Right,
when you have clients, it's possible to get the LLC set up. But it's just one more thing that has to happen before it closes. It's not particularly, it's just a matter of when the LLC is formed. It's always better to be proactive about it.
sure,
And if you form the LLC before the closing is, before you actually close, you don't have to pay double recording fee. So if you purchase the property in your individual name and you say later, you know what, I think I do want to put this in an LLC. Great idea. That's fine. But you will have to pay the recording fee again to record the deed because instead we have to then get it from your individual name to the LLC name. So you're paying
gotcha.
the cost of deed preparation and the cost of recording, which is based on the value of the property. So that can be quite high if the value of the property is high.
Right, right. Okay, great. What else should we know about setting up an LLC to buy real estate? Anything that we haven't talked about that would be helpful for people to know?
Um, let's see. I think it's generally a good idea to do. I think that people can be kind of intimidated if you've never done it before, but it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that you just kind of figure out as you go. And it's good to have, it's of course, if you have questions about it, it's good to hire an attorney to do it.
Of
I
course.
always, when I file LLCs for people, I will, at the end, I send them all their documents, of course, and then I give them a letter kind of explaining like what are the next steps and, what do I have to do moving forward. Another idea or another kind of tip that I give people is, just tell your accountant you're doing this, and your accountant will be able to help you. It's not particularly hard to file taxes for the LLC, but it's, something that they need to know about.
Right.
So
That's good.
it's just a good, I generally think it's a good idea. I think it's a responsible thing. And, if you have questions about it, definitely, do some research. Um, But yeah, that is LLCs are a good thing that they're very, very widely used. They're one of like the newer business entities.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just so widespread and there's a reason for that. They're fantastic tools for people to
I,
use.
I personally think the hardest thing if you're buying a property in Tuscaloosa is finding an LLC name that hasn't been used that includes Crimson or Tide or Roll
Mhm.
Tide, because I
Yes.
think I've seen every variation of all of those things. And
Yes,
I'm
and
sure you
and
have too.
absolutely. And yes, so the LLC name does have to be individual. So that means there cannot be two LLCs with the same name, but
Right.
there are tons of variations of things. But yes, that is so
Absolutely.
true. Yeah, Crimson, Alabama, like there's lots.
Yeah.
A lot of people will
For
do,
sure.
or I have seen in the past, people will, put the property name as the LLC, which I actually thought
Okay.
kind of made some sense.
Yes. Yes.
So,
My clients I referenced earlier that have set up multiples use the first couple letters of, they have, I think, 6 children, so they use the first couple letters of each child's name and put
hmm
two of them together to create a made up word, but it's,
hmm
it's the name for their LLC. And then, so two of their children's names are represented in each LLC that they've set up. So,
Yeah, that's smart. I like that and creative,
so
and certainly
yes.
probably hasn't been taken. So,
That's exactly right. That's right. Well, Rachel, thank you so much. This was so helpful. We will
absolutely.
include your contact information at the end of this so that if people want to get in touch with you, they can do so. And we
Mhm.
just appreciate your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And yep, I'm available for any follow-up questions or anything like that.
Thank you. I'm Vicki Grodner, and I'm the College Real Estate Coach.